All right, so this is the story of Trunks that we've never seen. Wait, what's the title again? The Forgotten Future Trunks Story You've Never Seen. It's by Smug Stick. I'm gonna put the original video in the description below. I'm curious, what have we not seen? So he's talking about like the manga, because the manga, if I remember, it's been a while since I read the manga of the Future Trunks story. But if I remember correctly, there are some parts of the story that's not in the anime, but that's a lot when it comes to Dragon Ball. I don't know. Instead of trying to figure it out, let's get right into it. I know I usually have long intros. Not this time. I'm very interested in seeing what is it that we have not seen.
The story of future Trunks has been told to us time and time again. There's the manga, and the special, and the anime, and even Dragon Ball Super. The story of two young men desperately trying to save their home. Until finally, on age 780, future Gohan faces the evil androids one last time. And a few hours later, Trunks finds his master dead on the ground, unleashing the power of the Super Saiyan. Now the world's peace rests on his shoulders, and his mother's time machine. But what drove Trunks to have the determination he needed to become the hope for the future? Was it Gohan's training, or maybe his mother's will? Even though future Trunks' story is one we've seen a dozen times at this point, there's a lot to his tale we never really get to see. So for this, we'll be looking at the short story titled The Lone Warrior, Trunks.
Really? There was another...
It was published in the Bardock special film anime comic written by Aya Matsui, one of the writers for the
I had no
anime,
idea.
and it
Oh,
was
this should be
illustrated
interesting.
by Minoru Maeda, a legendary character designer who worked on Toriyama projects from Dr. Slump all the way to the Trunks special. The whole story is told to us in a first-person view, while Vegeta waits to enter the time chamber a second time right before the Cell games. Trunks recalls various key events from his life. Like many children in his future timeline, Trunks grew up without a father. Death had become a common occurrence in the future, to the point where he was used to it at a very young age. He didn't even know what Vegeta looked like, since there were no pictures of him, either because Bulma had none, or they burnt down along with Capsule Corp long ago. This made it so whenever Trunks thought about his father, he could only picture him from his back, standing right before him and never able to see his face.
I continued to stare at my father's back, as if in a trance. Then, suddenly, I was driven by an impulse to run after him. Wouldn't father disappear into that endless space the moment he entered the door? I had that feeling. The door closed again without a sound. Looking back, I think it's always been like I was chasing after my father's back. From when I was very little, it's always been that.
Still, he was always curious about what he was like, and although he wanted to ask his mother about it, he thought it wasn't manly to. One of the most interesting memories Trunks talks about is the time when Bulma took him to visit Chi-Chi and Gohan. Gohan and Trunks hung out in his room, listening to the radio. The TV and radio stations had been destroyed by the androids, so the only source of information they had regarding those monsters was a pirated radio station called the Artificial Human Report. But that wasn't what Trunks was paying attention to. The decorations around Gohan's room made Trunks feel lonely. He had pictures of his family, of his father, Goku.
Perhaps I was drawn to the aura of a full-blooded Saiyan that he had, and the aura of a father, because that was something my own father would have surely had.
Goku didn't look like the strongest guy Bulma made him out to be, even when Gohan said that he was even stronger than himself. Trunks just couldn't imagine anyone stacking up to Gohan. He was the only one of Earth's defenders still alive from the androids' attacks. Trunks really admired Gohan, going as far as seeing Gohan's scar as a proud medal of his fights against the androids. The picture of Goku drove Trunks to find out more about his father, finally asking his mother about him while she worked on the time machine. This made Bulma smile, something she rarely did, and revealed to Trunks,
he was strong, stern, lonely, and he also did a lot of bad. There's no doubt that he's in hell right now, but he also had good things about him. He was very proud, and not the kind of person to show his gentleness, but I could tell.
Despite everything, Trunks could tell that his mother really did love his father.
Yeah, you really do resemble him, particularly your demeanor. And that mean look in your eye is just like him. But don't worry, you're a lot more handsome than he was.
Trunks also gives us a deeper insight into how he viewed his mother, seeing her as an incredibly strong woman in her own right, with Trunks recalling a time when a rich man had visited his mother wearing a power suit he used to defend himself against the androids. He wanted to fund the time machine research, but his goodwill was all a facade. In reality, he wanted to use the time machine to escape this timeline with Bulma and leave the rest of humanity in ruins. In response, Bulma sent him flying away with a single punch. Living in this future had forced Bulma to get in really good shape. She knew more than anyone else that humanity didn't need money. It needed the strength to fight. Trunks saw his mother as having an incredibly strong will, and he knew that his father must have been amazing to win her heart.
I both yearned for and was fearful of the father who I had never met. From that time onward, my father became my goal. Though it was only in my imagination, the image of my father that appeared when I closed my eyes was always from behind for some reason. Every time, he would always be standing straight up and never look back, only wishing to become strong. Father advanced forward and forward.
As years passed and Trunks trained with Gohan, his goal became reaching his father. He was convinced that once he caught up to him and saw his face, he'd be able to finally defeat the androids. But the more he tried, the more he felt his father was leaving him behind. One day, he told Gohan this very secret. Trunks thought it was silly, but Gohan didn't laugh. He completely understood. In fact, he made his own orange gi to look like his father, but he also knows that he hasn't caught up to his father yet. Sadly, that same night, the androids attacked. Gohan knocked out Trunks, and by the time he woke up, it was all over.
The moment I saw Gohan's corpse lying stretched out in a pool of blood, screams, anger, frustration, and tears swelled up in my body like a surging wave. That instant, fire ran up my body. My muscles trembled, and my blood vessels burned. When it felt like all my blood exploded at once, I became a Super Saiyan for the first time. The screams of those attacked by 17 and 18 echoed in my mind, but I repressed my impatient heart and absorbed myself in training. I could only think about becoming strong, becoming strong, becoming strong. Oddly, when I began training on my own, I felt that the distance between my and the image of my father that floated in my mind shrunk immensely. I took this as proof that I was doubtlessly doing things correctly.
From the day Gohan died, Trunks...
I forgot. Maybe I was told this before. I just forgot. Why didn't Gohan and Trunks ever train in the hyperbolic time chamber? Did Gohan not know about it? And even if he did know about it, you would have thought Goku would have, touched King Kai's shoulder, talked to Gohan, say, hey, train up there. Because I firmly believe if him and Trunks spent the day in there, they would have took him out easily. I mean, we see what Trunks did when he came back to his hometown after being in the past. So let me know in the comments. I don't remember, why didn't they train in there? Like, seeing them train, right, that little clip, I'm like, they could have done that, spent the day in the hyperbolic time chamber, and both of them will still be alive. I'm just saying, but I don't know. Let me know. I forgot. Maybe I was told it.
In fact, he thought he might never smile again. Eventually, Bulma finished the time machine. Trunks tried to fight the androids one last time on his own, only to be defeated. But this recklessness made Bulma see even more of Vegeta in her son. After recovering, their plan was set into motion, 20 years into the past, to give Goku the hard medicine.
I love this version of Trunks.
Before taking off, wishing for my journey's success, I wrote hope on the time machine. This was the hope from Gohan's words. The last hope.
But Trunks did the one thing he was told not to do, interfere further than he should.
Dragon Ball Super he was still cool, just wasn't the same.
Cold, but things turned out okay. In my opinion. This was when, for the first time, Trunks came face to face with his father.
He was just like my mother said, strong, proud, stern, and seemingly lonely. Startlingly, from behind, he looked just like the father from my imagination.
When Vegeta would catch him staring at him, he had to stop himself from saying that he was his son. It was all bizarre. Vegeta was alive, Bulma was young, Gohan was even more of a kid than he was. But above all, the way Bulma and Krillin talked loudly, it was like a family. Trunks even caught himself smiling for the first time in the 3 years since Gohan died. If this is the world his mother was fighting for, then clearly it was a world he wanted to protect. And when he finally met Goku, he finally saw him the way his mother did, a reliable and powerful warrior. Maybe he really could change his future. The next time he returned to the past, things had changed. More androids than his timeline, Goku's heart disease striking at a different time. For Trunks, what stood out the most was the second meeting with his father, where he did nothing to protect Bulma and baby Trunks. He was selfish, endangering everyone's lives as 17 and 18 appeared.
My father, who I had yearned for since I was very young, who had been my aspiration, the retreating figure of my father that I had always chased after, was smashed to smithereens.
It's really interesting to see Trunks' perception and wishes for what he wanted his father to be shattered before his eyes. We see this in the original story, of course, but actually hearing his thoughts on the matter just hits different. Especially when he reaches his
I gotta figure out where to, how
calls
can I
his
get
mother's
this? I want to
words
actually
on Vegeta
collect
a
that.
lie,
This
and that he hates his
I'll
father.
see. I'll look at the
But
beginning of the video
even
again,
through
see what it's
that,
called.
He wants to save his father from being killed by those two androids. So Trunks has these two conflicting emotions, causing him inner turmoil. We then get the scene of Vegeta and Trunks at the Rock Formation after the prince is defeated by 18. He had warned his father not to underestimate the androids, but he didn't listen. Trunks wanted to protect Vegeta, but how could he if he couldn't tell him who he really was? But Vegeta surprised Trunks when he said that for a pure-blooded Saiyan, the stronger their opponent is, the more they want to fight them. This made Trunks realize that Vegeta already knew who he was. If he was distinguishing himself as a pure-blooded Saiyan, then surely he knew Trunks was a hybrid. Beyond that, Vegeta said that he sought something beyond Super Saiyan, which Trunks never even considered. For 3 days, Trunks stood on those rocks, looking at his father's back, still wanting to catch up to him. Once they went to train into the time chamber, Vegeta ignored him, furthering the conflict inside Trunks and actually making him conceited enough to believe that he had surpassed his father and that he could beat Cell with his new Grade 3. But as we know, that wasn't the case. The story ends in the present, 20 hours since Vegeta entered the time chamber. He learned his lesson after being defeated by Cell, and is actually starting to see Vegeta in a different light. Now he's more determined than ever to catch up to his father, saying that if Vegeta's goal is Goku, then his is his father.
When I'm able to look at my father's face head on and have him look back at me, then that will be when I am able to grant my wish from when I was young, even if that has to be the battleground between father and son.
I would like that.
It's a nice conclusion, even if it was written as supplemental material. Taking into account the relationship at the end of the Cell arc
Yeah,
and into Dragon Ball
man,
Super, I think
I
it
wanna
fits
collect
quite well,
this.
and really punctuates just how interesting the relationships between the Dragon Ball characters can be, and the tragedy of future Trunks.
I can fight with cruel pain.
And that's Trunks' short story that many people don't know about. I really wanted to share this since it's so rare for us to get something so introspective.
Yeah,
when it comes to Dragon
I've
Ball
never
characters.
heard of this.
The actual story is more detailed and longer. You can read it for yourself in the link below. There's actually 2
Yeah, I'm
more
gonna check
short
that link
stories,
because
one for
I have
Piccolo
never
and
heard
one
of
for
this.
Vegeta, though they're not as robust. But if you want me to cover them, let me know in the comments. I really wish we could get more Dragon Ball stories like this that
Yeah.
explore different parts of the characters' lives.
I agree.
Maybe one day. Anyways, thanks for
Alright, hold up. Let me see what it was called again.
looking at the short story titled The Lone Warrior
The Lonely... The Lonely Future Warrior Trunks.
Trunks. It was published in the Bardock Special Film Anime
Okay.
comic written by Aya Matsui,
I gotta
one of the
remember
writers
that.
for the Dragon Ball.
Alright. But yeah, I'll put the original video in the description below. Yeah, that was good. I'm glad I checked it. Because at first I'm like, nah, I know everything about it. I am totally wrong. I did not know anything about this. But this is I like this viewpoint. Definitely brings a lot more character development, which is very good. It makes you into his thoughts in the first person view, like he said. But anyway, I just wanted to check it out, and I'm glad we was able to watch it together. But I'll put the original video in the description below, and I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good night.